Financial markets, cryptocurrency, gold and silver, world news.
Fair to say you simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. We did. That's another way to think about it. We did. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We printed digital.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this September 15th, 2022, a Thursday. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you here. Well, there it's happened. The strike has evidently been averted. The railway strike across the United States that could have cut off as much as 40% of the goods that are being shipped all the way across the United States. It's been averted for now. Wall Street opened lower anyway. It says stocks are opening moderately lower on Wall Street. Even though this is a positive news story with the railroad strike being averted. We're going to talk about something else right now that's in the news. Putin and the leader of China, Xi, are meeting for a big meeting. Says on Thursday, the much anticipated bilateral meeting between Chinese President Xi and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. They are at the summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Uzbekistan. The two leaders agreed that the end of a unipolar world where the U.S. dominates is at hand. Putin called it ugly and pointed to the rejection of American hegemony by the vast majority of countries. Now, if you guys don't know what a unipolar world is, it's basically a one-world government or a one-world order. That's the basics of it. It's a one world where one entity controls the entire world, and that's what a unipolar world is. So Putin said, I guess Putin said this. It's in quotations. It says the Russian leader told Xi, the West's, and this is in quotations right now, attempts to create a unipolar world have recently taken on an absolutely ugly shape and are absolutely unacceptable to the vast majority of nations on the planet, quote unquote. And now also it says China's Xi is raising concerns, in quotations, over the Ukraine situation. So we have this going on, this big meeting between Xi and Russia's leader Putin. You know that Putin and Russia, I should say, Russia and China are friends. They're friendly countries together, and I guess they're going to increase trade. They say that uniting these vast geographic spaces, Russia and China, is about half the population of the world and half of the world's. When you take these countries into consideration, the BRICS countries, it represents a huge portion of the world's population. So, that's what's going on there. Now let's take a look at the markets. Let's take a look at silver today. Silver is down today 49 cents at $19.11. We are in a very bearish period right now. There's a tremendous amount of bearish energy out there in all the markets. It's because of what the Fed's doing. And this is going to get worse before it gets better. But it is going to get better. But the problem is, when it does get better, we're going to start entering into what I would refer to as the acceleration phase before a hyperinflation. And we haven't experienced the acceleration phase yet that precedes a hyperinflation. We've experienced inflation, 1970s style inflation. And in fact, somewhat stagnant economy, so it's actually been stagflation. That's what we've experienced so far. Moderate inflation. And I know you guys saying, Glenn, come on, this is not moderate. 8% a year, and that's according to their metric, which is really probably about 15 or 16% per year, is not moderate inflation. But yes, it is very moderate inflation. It's only inflation. It's not hyperinflation. I've seen a lot of these people out there who were saying, oh, we're in hyperinflation. We're not in hyperinflation, not right now. And in fact, even when the Fed does change direction, which they will, it's either that or the whole Western world's going to basically be nothing left but cinders if they don't. Of course they will. Absolutely, of course they will change direction. Even after the Fed changes direction, we're not going to be in hyperinflation initially. What we're going to be in is what's called the acceleration phase, which always precedes a hyperinflation. That's when gold and silver are really going to take off. And at first, it's not gonna be huge, you know. I mean, you can expect the silver price maybe to go up to a couple $100 during the acceleration phase, you know. And you can expect the gold price to probably, I don't know, I'm just gonna guess, maybe a guess, 3,000-4,000 or something, you know, during the acceleration phase. That's where we're headed. But the acceleration phase is still not the hyperinflation. When the hyperinflation actually hits, you cannot put a price on gold and silver in the fiat currency because it's a hyperinflation. It means that the fiat currency is on its way to zero. It's absolutely going to lose value like a stone dropping in the water. You know how fast a stone sinks? That's how quick your currency is going to sink in value when the hyperinflation hits, the actual hyperinflation. Once we enter into the acceleration phase, there's no turning back any longer because it gains its own momentum no matter what they do. There's no turning back once we enter into the acceleration phase. And during the acceleration phase, which is probably going to last some 6 months or so, I don't know, probably not that long, you're going to see inflation like you've never seen before. And during that period in time, we're probably going to go through the turmoil of unrest of the people. The people are going to be very upset because and the government, of course, is going to come out with the CBDCs, which what we're talking about here is an early phase CBD. It's not a CBDC, but it's called FedNow, which has already been set to come out and be released. This is just a precursor to the real CBDC, which they're going to have to do to quell the people's unrest. That's going to accelerate us into the hyperinflation much faster, and it's also going to be the makings. It's going to be what's really going to help the cryptocurrencies along, as well as gold and silver. This hyperinflation that we're headed into is going to be nothing more, nothing less than ultimately a disaster like you've never seen before for the Western world. Meanwhile, what are they going to do over in the East? Well, I just don't know. But they're not going to help us out of this situation that we're in. Because, in other words, don't look for any lifeline from the East. Because you saw what I showed you there, where they said that they're totally against. Well, basically, the sides have been set up on the earth right now. The earth's divided, east and west. And they don't want the same things. And so the Western world, basically, we're on our own, and there's going to be no life preserver thrown to us. Probably not, unless there's a catch to it. Sadly to say. Anyway, moving on with this. But here's another point I want to make before I quit on this. Is the initial early parts of the acceleration phase could actually see the economy actually start to pick up again a little bit. Because basically they're going to come to the rescue of the markets and stuff, and they're going to start injecting liquidity again into the system to stop the collapse that they created. And that injection of liquidity into the system could mean they revitalize the system somewhat again during the acceleration phase. But it's only going to be temporary, because the hyperinflation, this is a hyperinflationary depression that's coming. A very potent hyperinflationary depression. And it's going to see a tremendous increase in crime, a tremendous increase in homelessness. You haven't seen homelessness yet. You're going to see entire cities of homeless people. It's going to lead to a population decrease. Not an increase, a decrease. Well, the population expanded. They didn't call it the baby boomer generation for nothing. Population expanded during the years when we were on a credit binge. And now we're going to have to pay the piper. Hyperinflation is the only last resort. It's the only last place they can kick the can. I can tell you the surety of hyperinflation coming by just, I want you guys to realize what they do every time the debt ceiling comes in the United States, where the United States needs to borrow more money to extend and pay for things that they are unpaid or unfunded liabilities. Whether they always do, they always raise the debt ceiling. They always wait until the last minute, though. This is the same game that they're playing right now as they play with the debt ceiling. Exact same game, but they're going to crush the economy with this game. And then they're gonna do like they always do with the debt ceiling. They always raise it. They're gonna go back to quantitative easing again and get rid of the quantitative tightening, and they're gonna probably lower rates and so on. The same old game, and bail out all their buddies in the system. It's just wash, rinse, repeat. But it's your lives that are affected by this. Our lives, me, you, all of us ordinary people. We're the ones that get pounded into the ground by this. And we can't see what, for some reason, people are too focused on their TikTok and on their phones and stuff to notice what's happening until their phone gets switched off. Until their lights get switched off. 20 million Americans can't pay their power bill. Soon it'll be 40 million. Then 80 million. Can't even pay their power bill. Well, how are you going to pay your phone bill? It's going to come down to the end. Food prices are going to go up so high. It's going to come down to the end where you're scratching your head saying, what do I want to do this? Do I want to have a roof over my head this week, or do I want to eat? Eat will win. And this is why I say the homelessness is going to increase exponentially from where it is now. And I predicted this several years ago. And people think, oh, Glenn, your predictions are coming true because we see so many homeless people now. You ain't seen nothing yet. This is not the meat of my prediction. This is just the initial stages, the initial start of it. I said homeless cities 2 years ago. I was talking about it. Homeless cities. Before we saw the big homeless problem. It's just beginning. This is the tip of the iceberg to discontented people out there, discontented with their governments here in the West. What's going to happen over in the East? Well, I don't live over there, so I don't know what's going to happen over in the East. But I can tell you what's happening here in the West because this is where I live here in the West. I can see it coming. Big problems. Anyway, getting off on the tear here. Let's take a look at gold today. Gold today is down $27 at $16.69. What a bargain. When you consider that this is going to be the big thing that the black market uses, and the whole world is going to turn into a black market. The whole Western world, at least, I can say, is going to turn into a black market. Because if you think for 1 minute that people are going to be contented to just go ahead and pay with these CBDCs where every transaction can be seen, and that they're not going to carry a coin in their pocket any longer. You got another thing coming. There's always been a black market, and when they get rid of cash, and that's what they're planning on doing, which is primarily what's used in the black market now, the black market will continue on. You're not going to stop a black market. No more chance of stopping a black market than they had chances of stopping the Prohibition. During the Prohibition era, when they said, okay, you can't have booze. The people drank booze anyway. They couldn't stop that. That was the making of these gangsters like Bugsy Malone and Al Capone and all that. It was the Prohibition era. That's what made these gangsters, and that's what'll happen again. Is this is another facet of this? Is you're gonna have an increase in crime like you've never ever seen before. All of this is trouble. And so all of their efforts to try to make things better, the government, they only muck things up and make things a lot worse. And you think things are bad now? You ain't seen nothing until this hyperinflation hits. The only people that are going to survive are the people with really good brains. It's not your brawn out there. These guys that are preparing and trying to become a Rambo, and they're just like, oh, I can't wait until this hyperinflation or everything. I've got my whatever, and they're just going to get themselves in a lot of trouble because they're not using their head. You got to use their head to get through. So it's the Rambo that has brains. He'll do all right. Because it's your smarts that's gonna. It's like a maze. This whole thing's like a maze. This hyperinflation and getting through this situation and coming out to the other side of it unscathed by using your brain. That's how you get through a maze. You have to figure out the maze and go in one side of the maze and come out the other side of the maze, and that's what this is going to be. It's actually more like a maze. It's actually a minefield maze. So the smart people will come out the other side unscathed. And the fools and idiots, well, they're going to get caught in the massive amount of crime that's coming with all this and discontent. And they might not come out the other side. Anyway, rambled on enough about that. Cryptocurrency today. We're looking at the crypto price of $19,750 for Bitcoin and $14.88 for Ethereum. I think that crypto myself, during this initial period right here where the dollar's being supported by Fed tightness and hawkishness by the Fed, we're going to see downsides to crypto. But what this is setting up for you guys is if you can get the right opportunity when it's at its lowest, because this is going to really do well. Especially these coins that are privacy coins, the top privacy coins, the ones that are like in the top ones here. You have to go down a ways to find some really good privacy coins here. But they're going to do really well, I think, coins that like Monero here is one of your top privacy coins. Well, you guys know which the privacy coins are if you've done your research, and because, like I say, what's going to happen is a black market's going to be established, and they're going to use whatever they can use to get around the CBDCs because of the total control that the government's going to. But the CBDCs are going to lose value so fast, along with the regular paper currency. What's the exit door for the government on all this? When they start to lose control over the value of their currencies, what's the exit door? What's the exit ramp? They call it a reset? What in the hell is that? How do you reset things and restructure things without bankrupting everybody? You just can't say, okay, now we're going to bring out some new currency, and say John over there, say he's got a factory, right? and they say, okay, we're going to bring out some new currency. And by the way, the old currency's worth nothing now. The new currency's what's worth something. And John says, well, I haven't got any of the new currency. How am I going to run my factory? You multiply that times 1 billion factories all over, and not just factories, but stores and businesses and everything else that are all invested in the old currency. You just can't say, okay, we're going to reset it now. By the way, all the old, what you got's worthless, and now you got to, well, they don't even have a stake to buy into the new stuff. How's that going to work? It just seems to me that they're pushing us down into a dead-end road. It's like Kane says. He says at the end of this thing, he said, you're all dead anyway. You know? And that's the thing. At the end of the road of all this is, what's the solution? How do we get us back to a stable system after this is all over? Because money's the foundation of everything. And it's become even more so. You go back to the 1800s, you know. And money, people would work. Money was important back then, but it wasn't like it is now. Now, the whole system just runs on one thing, and one thing only, money. What we call money, which is actually just a fantasy. It's what you call fugazi. It's nothing. It's puff of air. It's paper that only has value because the government says it has value. And once they've mucked that up completely to where people don't trust it anymore and the people don't give it any value, see, it's all a mind game they've been playing. The money only has value because they say so. It's like, once that say-so's gone, then the money starts to drop. Everybody wants to get out of it as fast as they can. What's the exit ramp for all of this? Because the whole world will stop if there's no exit ramp. And I don't think they have an adequate plan. I've racked my brain trying to think, well, what can they do? What could they do to get out of this? This is a mess. What only thing they've done is kick the can down the road, and as they kick the can down the road, they make it so that this thing's going to blow up bigger and bigger, the bigger they make it. It's like a monetary death trap. It's at this point, it makes sense for them it makes sense for all of us to try to kick the can down the road as far as they can now at this point. Because at the end of the road is something so terrible we can't imagine, because our money is all just going to go poof. Unless they have some sort of a solution, unless some sort of a slow transition is made. But they better start now. Make something of value. Go. I don't know. This is just a conundrum. Anyway, guys, let's take a look at the Dow today. It was down 52 points. Now it's down 46 points. So we're just having one of those days. We're staying just under the wire, a little bit. But like I told you guys, this Dow's not going anywhere up big time until they get done with what they're doing, the Fed. Nobody trusts the Fed. The Fed has total control right now over all the markets. And they are in this thing where they say they're fighting inflation. At the very best they can do at this point in time is to cause some moderate disinflation. That's the very best that they can do right now. Anyway, listen, guys, let's move on. Take a look at the oil market today. It's down $3.66 at 84.82. So that's a pretty big drop for oil today. Take a look at the MOVE index. And come on, bring up my chart. 125.35. So the MOVE index hasn't been going much of anywhere. Bonds and rates today. This thing is slow right now. Computer's functioning slow. Anyway, bond yields are rising right now. Looking at a 10-year at 3.46 and a 30-year at 3.48. And finally, the U.S. dollar index today is at 109.68. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something, and you wait for these tidbits. I've been doing my research on this, and I think this is one of the biggest factors that's going to make the Fed turn, is this the DXY, the US dollar index. Because emerging markets and the markets around the world, the dollar is a world reserve currency, and they rely upon this dollar. And if this dollar runs too high, runs too hot on the DXY, it could create another crisis that they want to avert. And this is potentially a big thing to the Fed as to what the timing of they're going to change direction. They're putting on a brazen face right now and saying, oh yeah, we're going to fight inflation to the bitter end, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, they're watching certain charts. They're watching the market indexes, but they're also watching things like the MOVE index. They're watching their Phillips curve that they're so enamored with. But this is one of the big ones that they're watching, is the dollar index. And if this thing goes too high too fast, they have a marker set on these charts, and they're just going to go by their marker. And if they pass their marker, then they're going to do something about what they're doing and change direction. They can change direction because they've always told you guys that they're data dependent. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the very next episode. You guys have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.